All right, what's good, YouTube? Car Fight King here again. Sorry about the lighting. Nothing I can really do about it. Whatever. So today, guys, I wanted to bring you a BT8 tier list video. I know that we're about to hit the EX2 meta, and I'll come out with we'll do one of those probably for next week or the week after. I will be going to the Philadelphia regionals, so we could probably have a little bit of a better snapshot after that. But we'll see. But for right now, I want to show you a list that me and my boy Nicky D worked on his stream the other day, and I will put his information to his YouTube, his Twitch, and everything in the description box below. But but this is pretty much the finished product of what he and I worked on as far as what we think about the BT8 meta. So I'm gonna go from the top on down. It's just a little bit easier to explain, but you can see it here. When you look, but disclaimer, when you look at like what is the best decks in the game, you kind of look at, obviously you look at results, and we went through a lot of different tournament results and everything when compiling this list, and finishes and whatnot, and you also take into account popularity and or how many of this is being played, conversion rates and things like that. And so I think we put together a pretty decent tier list. If you guys have any other opinions or whatever else it is, please put it, definitely let me know in the comment section below. But starting off with the best, we got yellow hybrid, imperial, and blue hybrids. Now yellow hybrid imperial should instantly be in the best category because they are the best. Yellow hybrid has won the most regionals of any deck in the game right now. It's just it gets one, it has multiple top 16s, and then once it gets into the top 16, more likely than not, it's going to top, and it has a high propensity to actually win the entire event. The latest event, I think, being I know Gen Con Mario Gaming World, he won with yellow hybrids, but like top 4 had at least the top 3 were all yellow hybrids. So there's that. In the deck is just ridiculous. The deck it's just a really strong deck, and it's the thing where you have support from BT7, kind of like with blue hybrids, where like yellow and blue hybrid decks have support that transcends multiple formats, to where you're able to upgrade the deck and play it at a very high level, even in a meta full of new things, right? And Imperial is one of those new things, but like yellow hybrid is just really consistent. Ophanimon is a great upgrade. People are going back to playing Holy Wave now. I've thought Holy Wave was a good card before, but I'm not a yellow player, so I don't really play test and explore heavily into that. I let my brother do that. But the inclusion of Holy Wave to stop a lot of the aggression of the other top popular deck, which is Imperial, and it can stop blue hybrid and a lot of decks that maybe want to do late game body spam out and then throw things. It's just a great deck in general. Has a out to pretty much everything, and it's just tanky enough just to survive anything that gets thrown at you. Imperial is the other thing I want to tell you, because Imperial is the most popular deck, and the reason why Imperial to me is more popular as far as the number of decks being played in a tournament is because yellow hybrids is definitely more of a control tempo deck. They'll grind out the matchup and kind of like will your security down, just being just a big old tank, right? Imperial is a deck where it's easily accessible through the starter deck. The upgrades to the deck, I think the most expensive card in the deck is Davis, which is the Tamer, and you can get away with running just 2 Davis. I mean, there are a lot of lists that play just 2 Davis, like maybe like 2 Davis, a Mimi, whatever else it is. But like Davis is the most expensive card in the deck, and he's like a $20 Tamer. But the deck is like pretty competitive right out of the starter deck. Again, easy accessible. The deck is not hard to play, and the best way I classify Imperial is that it is a beginner. It is a beginner deck, beginner friendly deck that is also the most competitive deck in the game. Right? It's like a beginner can pick this deck up and beat someone who is a 2 year veteran who knows kind of like what they're doing, or you 1.5 year veterans, however long this game's been out. But it can beat a veteran who knows what they're doing and who's done well just because of how strong it is and how easy accessible it is. And the deck kind of builds itself in a way, but it also kind of plays itself. Like, once you kind of like know what you're doing in the game, the deck just kind of just runs like it's like a well-oiled machine. I use this terminology to explain Imperial, where it's like hot butter when you pour it on top of pancakes and then put syrup on as you slice into it. It's just so good. It's so easy. But no, really, honestly, it's just a great deck. Megadeth is a fantastic form of removal, especially since we're in a format where we're not going super wide. A lot of decks are like building stacks, and Jogress is like building like major stacks. You probably only have maybe 1 or 2 Digimon to get rid of in most scenarios. So like cards like Megadeth is just extremely strong. You have the jamming X Vmon from the classic collection, which can, jamming is a really, really strong mechanic, which is why, Imperial BT3 Imperial lasted, from the 1.5 set all the way into set 5 and winning like a regional set 5. I won a Guy Force Gaming box tournament on part of their Saturday series with Imperial. It's just, Imperial's like, my brother explained, Imperial's like elemental heroes. It's always going to be good. It's always going to be relevant. It may not be the best in the game, but it will always be relevant, always good, and always there because, it's just like that. So it's just a really strong deck. And then we have blue hybrids. So Nicky actually pointed out something very familiar. We're starting to see blue hybrid pop up a lot more at regional tournaments. It actually just won the core TCG regional, and the reason is because I think one of the things is like blue hybrid, again, it has transcendent support that allows it to carry into multiple formats. But the thing is that new toy syndrome is kind of comes to a close towards the middle of the format, meaning that, and this is what Nicky said, new toy syndrome comes to the format kind of like midway through, whatever it is, when people are kind of, people are like, okay, I've had my fun with the new decks that came out of this new main set, but blue hybrids is such a strong deck, even with Jogress in play. It's such a strong deck that it's still topping, it's still doing well, and a lot of people that play blue hybrids before BT7 most likely switched over to Imperial, and then now you're seeing some Imperial players go back to their blue hybrid. Is really if you like do like dev rolls or just test hands with it, like a lot of times you don't open up with a bad hand, you open up with a pretty good hand. Like, you always have something to do in a blue hybrid because it is like a low to the ground type of deck, putting out your tamers, doing all your searches and stuff like that, and you can easily overwhelm your opponent while being able to stun them and hit whatnot. So honestly, it's just such a good deck, and you're gonna definitely see more people picking up this deck. Even with the EX2 set coming out, you're still gonna see a lot of people still pick up blue hybrids and continue carrying on this deck into the BT9 format. So getting into the rest of the tier list, 1.5, we have X Antibody, my wife Beelstar, my side chick Mastermon, and Security Control. Okay, so X Antibody, really, really good deck. Builds a single stack. It's basically a protect the tower type of deck. But my boy Ed TCG, he got 11th place with this at the core TCG regional and got his invite with X Antibody. Just really, really a good deck. The Alphamon OTK play with Orumon is really cool. It's a fun deck to play. Like, when you put something into the stack, you have a bunch of chain effects that go off. The deck can be pretty tanky, pretty hard to swing around. It's just that the deck definitely has trouble against like decks like Blue Hybrid, where Tommy can come in and just blow their stack away with Kumamon and whatnot. So it can get kind of hard in that category. I think I've seen some Blue Hybrids taking in like a copy of Howling Crusher for the matchup and whatnot. Imperial can be tough if you don't have like Breath of the Gods. Like you can play around, you can try and play around it, but like, you know, there's just times where it's like, hey, look, you know, Breath of the Gods is not active, not here. I can stun it. You can stun it with Dino Beamon, just pretty much rest it and keep it rested to stave off the aggression. Then you can beat on their security. Imperial can Mega Death it away, but otherwise, and you know, Yellow Hybrids can probably just tank through everything. But I think it actually has a decent Yellow Hybrid matchup. We'll have to see. But X Antibody's just really strong, really good deck, and definitely deserves tier 1.5. It will be the best deck in the game, I feel, come BT9. Now, Beelstar, my absolute favorite deck. I want to put it in the best category because, you know, she is the best. But I put it, but realistically, put it in 1.5 because it's Imperial blue hybrids can kind of blow it out the water as far as speed goes. Again, when I played against blue hybrid in regionals, it was probably the toughest matchup of the day. Where when we both drew the cards that we wanted to see, it was just a real back and forth match. You know, especially because with Beelstar, you're hard playing cards. You're playing a lot of bodies without sources, as purple generally does, and you're kind of giving blue hybrids what they want. So it's a real technical matchup in like the blue hybrid matchup. Imperial, if they don't really run, if you don't have great security bombs, Imperial can definitely run through you. And yellow hybrids, I think we have a decent matchup against yellow hybrids. It's just that they might be able to tank a little bit, tank more it is. And if we can't get our setup, then we can kind of get overwhelmed with what they're trying to do as they kind of like beat through our security with like Rapid Mon and things like that. And it's one of those decks where you kind of want to get set up a little bit faster. Even if it's against a slower deck, you still want to kind of get set up a little bit faster. But I think it is definitely 1.5. Massamon in the same breath it is as well. Massamon's conversion rate in tournaments is not great at all. I know Ying won with it at the Top Cut regionals, I think it was. He won with the deck with Massamon, but Massamon has been seen in most of the top 16 finishes across NA. I want to say, and I just think it's definitely a more popular deck over here as well. Again, it's a starter deck. It's easily accessible to get it and whatnot, but it's really a hard deck. It's a very unorthodox and really hard deck to kind of build. And then when you play with the deck, if you're trying to play the deck at a high level, it really takes into account your decisions, as a player that you make. So, your decision making really make or break the deck. And because one wrong step in a certain matchup, I think it really requires you to understand your deck and understand the matchup and how you need to play it out and what you can anticipate, because you're going to be giving your opponent quite a few memory at a lot of different points, and you want to make sure you have a backup plan. You want to make sure that you're anticipating things. And again, it's a hard deck to play at a high level, but it's such a fun deck, and again, it's easily accessible for everybody because it's a starter deck. And then security control, I know like KVN, I think Kyle Kemper and one of them did do really well with security control. I know my boy Tyler, the leader of Gaia Force Gaming, did really well, I guess, at his locals with it as well. It's just a strong deck, and it's kind of needed. Dealing with yellow hybrids and Rapid Mon, dealing with Imperial, my god, even dealing with X Antibody, it's kind of the deck you like. I know a lot of people don't like it and hate it, and it's slow, and when they mirror match they go into time and whatnot, but it's kind of a deck where you kind of need it for some of these faster decks, or some of these protect the stack type of decks and whatnot. But yeah, it's a good deck. I think it's definitely still tier 1.5 for sure. And then we get into like the kind of good. So kind of good is like the decks that are good but kind of mid. Black War Greymon is a good deck. Probably not as good as 1.5, definitely not as good as the best, but it's kind of good. It can beat any of the decks above it for sure, but it's just kind of good. If it breaks, it really has a hard time recovering from breaks. It has a hard time recovering from getting your stuff removed from the field. It's actually a pretty fun deck. It's a pretty technical deck, I would say, just to play again at a high level, just because of what you need to watch for, like when do you play your Metal Greymon out? Are you can set up like a Greymon in the raising area and wait for your opponent to drop a big card. Then you can go into Metal Greymon to digivolve that, and then Blackwood Greymon can help really control tamers and stuff like that. And I think it can definitely do some damage against like yellow hybrids and whatnot. And but that Metal Greymon is like such an important card. It's probably the best card in the deck that gives it what it needs. But like when you play Blackwood Greymon, the support for it kind of feels incomplete. We'll have a much better version of the deck in BT9 with like Samudramon or Galmon, whichever one is called. But Blackwood Greymon kind of feels incomplete at times, but it's a very fun deck. And just depending on how you build it with like your toolboxing of other megas and whatnot, it can be definitely pretty good. Armor Rush I love Armor Rush. I love Magnamon. I like Vmon stuff. So I mean, Armor Rush is such a cool archetype. It can beat down opponents pretty fast. The armor purging thing can be annoying, especially when your armor Digimon live in security. Your opponent, unless they're playing yellow, can technically has to remove it twice, just to get the entire stack off the board. But this deck really kind of loses kind of hard to yellow hybrids. Rapidmon just kind of wrecks this entire deck. Blue hybrids, they can, they strip your sources and stun you, and then it's pretty much your armor purging and stuff is gone. Imperial can bot deck pretty much most of your plays in your deck and whatnot. So they're just, against the best decks in the game, it's kind of hard, but it can be fun. It can be very fast when you can get your fire rocket combos, whatnot, and then swing with Flame Dramon. And then maybe like armor change into like a Magnamon for blocker and whatnot. It can be pretty cool, but it definitely struggles against some of the the best decks when both players are playing on an even playing field. Green hybrids is kind of the same way. Green hybrids, like Nicky put it best, Green hybrids has everything it needs to do well. It just needs to draw into it. And Green hybrids is a really cool deck, but it's pretty inconsistent. It's okay. It's pretty inconsistent. Because you're gonna need to draw. It does rely on like getting to your JPs and things like that, but it still kind of does what it does from last set. Not too many upgrades, but it does what it does from last set, really. I know some people tried to combine it with Shivamon and whatnot, and it maybe just hasn't worked out. I think just, pure green hybrids. Ancient Troymon is extremely good in this deck, especially against the Imperial matchup and even the yellow matchup as well. The X-Antibody matchup, Ancient Troy can be pretty good against too, so that's just something to look out for as well. Then you have Ancient OTK. Ancient OTK can be a really strong deck or really bad. It's like really 50-50. Like if you get your stack, my boy level 69 Weedle said it best, like you get your stack, you can swing for 16k, all of their security, and then you can either drop you can drop the Omnimon on them to finish the game out. You can reach up to 18k with the hero tamer. You get your stack, your option cards won't work because you'll have your Aldemon in the stack with your Ancient Greymon. Play like a Zoe, and you can find your Ancient Greys if your Ancient Greys if you want. I think we saw that play at one of the regionals as well. So it can be a really good deck. It can pretty much beat any deck in the game, if it gets the stuff, but it's a matter of how fast you get to your stack and how fast can you get to start hitting your opponent's security with everything. So that's why I say it's kind of good. And then, for the tier 2 deck, I'm not going to go through the tier, too much of the tier 2, too much of the not too good, but like Shivamon is definitely a tier 2 deck. I don't think it's a truly bad deck, but again, it kind of suffers from a lot of the issues with green where it needs to kind of keep digivolving and you need to keep drawing into your pieces, and you kind of got to keep Shivamon a little upright. Metal Garurumon is a very interesting deck, unexplored to a high degree, because there is like a blue-yellow Jagras deck that uses Metal Garurumon as like the top end for it. I know Luis the Panda did really well at a big tournament with it, so there is that. But yeah, it's a very interesting deck. I think it's just unexplored to a degree, but might not have as much the success as like the other ones up there. Red hybrids with like ancient, with like the Emperor Greymon and stuff is, still, it's a tier 2 deck. It's still an okay deck. I think Ancient OTK is a little bit better because it just gets the job done faster. But Red Hybrids is, kind of okay. It's kind of like the mid version of the Ancient OTK. Gabubond, again, Gabubond is okay, but you kind of combine Gabubond with the Blue Hybrid support, so it's really Blue Hybrids plus Gabubond. Gabubond has turned more into just a finishing play, more so than a play that you use throughout the game, because, hitting your own security in this type of format is very, very detrimental to what you want to do. And then there's like the red yellow Sylphimon deck. It's okay. Again, it's another deck just like the Metal Garurumon blue yellow Jagras, where it's a deck that's has not been explored too much. And with EX2 on the horizon, I don't think it's going to be explored much still. But when we get some results from it, hey, we'll see it. And then for the not too good Malamyotismon, not too good of a deck. It's just not that great. It's a good beginner deck. It teaches you how to play like fundamental purple in a way, but it's not that great. Machinedramon is getting support in EX3. The Chaos Drumon's good. I like Machinedramon, but it's just a little bit too slow for how much memory it gives and things like that. This format. Diaboromon, kind of in the same category, getting up to your Mega and then keeping them on board. This format is a little bit harder to do, but if you let Diaboromon snowball out of control, it can get kind of crazy. Cherubimon, Cherubimon's kind of mid this format. If it gets bounced, if it gets bounced back, if it gets like chaos degraded, it just kind of sucks. I don't think it's a horrible deck, but it's not too good. Dark Knightmon, it needs BT10 support for Dark Knight to be good, because you just kind of throw it into D Brigade and try to run a dual engine. Jessmon, Savior got hit to 1, so it's kind of mid. Lilith Loop's kind of it's kind of dead. You can still play like Lilith to a degree, but you're kind of like doing a lot to do nothing, kind of. Yeah. Not saying it's horrible, but you're kind of doing a lot to do what other decks are doing, but a little bit better. And then Rasenmon, almost non-existent. Yeah, pretty much almost non-existent. But that's the tier list, guys. I hope I explained it to you guys. Thank you guys for listening as well. And this is Nicky D and Cardfight King's BT8 tier list, and we will probably after the Philadelphia regionals that I'll be participating in, we might have an EX2 tier list for you guys. So thank you guys for watching, and see you later.